Waiting on the lyrics.
I gotta look them up. It's only like 4 words and I don't know it. Rise up, dead man, let the gunshots ring. Rise up, dead man, let the gunshots ring. Shadows calling, let the gunshots ring. Fought for devil, let the gunshots ring.
And that's what this song's
Black trains coming, let the gunshots ring. Rise up, dead man, let the gunshots ring. Hills they having, let the gunshots ring. That's among us, let the gunshots ring. Carnage shadows, let the gunshots ring. Rise up,
Dude, what if our video gets claimed
man,
because of this?
let the gunshots ring. Let the gunshots ring.
All right, so there's the song.
Ring.
Skinny Rick. It does not have the opening normal intro song in his ears right now, so it's going to be interesting to see what this ends up sounding like.
I'm really. If it gets flagged, it just means that I can sing really good. Yeah. That's all it means.
So that was. So what is that? That's the. Is it an actual song?
It's an actual song. It's called "Rise Up, Dead Man" by the Port Sulphur Band.
And that's in Hunt Showdown.
Correct.
So Skinny Rick was talking about wanting
Which
to make
is
a video.
Probably my new favorite game.
Yeah, like a music video style thing. So we got a quick episode for you today. Yesterday we did the Valentine's Day episode, and it was a lot of work, and we lost a lot of the audio and stuff like that, which makes me sad because it was really good. But we released what we had, and we got to keep it moving, you know. So is there anything that we want to talk about before we get into what I wanted to talk about today?
No,
Do you want to tell the story about us going to the steel company?
Dude, oh my gosh. Yeah, we can tell that.
Yeah,
I was really not into
dude.
it. All right, so we're building this table here at this church. And you know, tables need legs. So we get sent to go get the metal. Well, first of all, someone who's building the legs asks my papa to get the legs, and he sends us to get the legs. So we're secondhand getting sent to get the legs.
Yeah.
And we have to get them in these certain sizes and this certain material, like lengthwise, and also the metal has to be a certain like width. So it's already a lot of details that I don't want to keep up with.
And neither the length or the width are small either.
Everything's large, and we have a Tahoe. And so we get to this place, to the metal store, and turns out it's definitely not a store.
Yeah.
It's for sure an office, because we walk in and there's desks everywhere. The people are like, "Oh, can we help you?" We're like, "Yeah, we're here to get some metal."
They're like, "Are you guys here to stock the vending machines?"
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we're like, yeah, we're getting some metal since the only thing you sell is metal.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, well, do you have an order placed? And I was like, I don't know. I'm getting secondhand sent to pick up this metal. So it turns out after they go through about, maybe 25 orders, that we're not in the list. So I'm like, okay, can I place an order to pick up right now?
Yeah.
And so we ended up doing it, but they're like, yeah, we can't cut it because we're too busy. We could get it cut tomorrow, but we can't do it today. And so we're like, okay, well, we have a sawzall. Can we cut it with that? And we're like, yeah, if you want to cut it yourself, you can cut it. So they give us this little piece of paper and tell us to go out to the warehouse. And when we get to the warehouse, oh boy, it was a world of OSHA violations.
Yeah.
So there's like metal beams flying through the air. Excuse me.
Above everybody's heads.
Yeah,
no hard hats.
nobody's wearing hard hats. Hard hats are all in a pile under a table in the corner.
Yeah.
The dudes are like smoking and stuff and just like working out in the warehouse. And so we give them the thing, they give us the metal, and then we're like, okay, so you guys can't cut this, right? And they're like, no, we're too busy. So we're like, okay, we're going to cut it with our sawzall. So we start to do it. And of course, we've never used this sawzall before. So we don't know how to put it together.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, here, let me take it and do it for you passive aggressively. Yeah. And so he does it. He gives us the sawzall. We start cutting. We're cutting everything. It's going great.
There's metal beams flying above our heads.
Yep.
You know, we got the Tahoe in this warehouse, like deep in this warehouse.
And you know, these boys they're too busy to they're too busy to help us because they're all working out and smoking while watching us cut this stuff. Yeah. And so the whole time they're just like, you know, no, do it this way or do it that way, but not like helping, just like, like you're doing it wrong. Yeah. Like the whole, like, you missed a spot. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So finally we got it.
After an hour of being in that warehouse cutting.
And we left. Shout out to Universal Steel, you know.
Just straight up gonna name drop them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why not, dude? Yeah, so that happened this week, and that's pretty much it, I think.
It was super stressful.
Yeah, it was very stressful.
And I'll never go back.
Yeah.
Ever.
Never. So unless we have an order placed that they have the time to cut. So yeah. So we did that this week, and we got that Valentine's Day episode recorded. And so I figured that what we could talk about today, since we don't have too much time, I brought up a couple of episodes ago a documentary that I was watching, docuseries called The Pharmacist.
Yeah.
Which, you know, takes place in New Orleans in like 2010, 2011. And yeah, so it's about a guy who's a pharmacist. His son ends up getting shot and killed buying Oxycontin. And so the dad goes on a what seems at first to be like a wild goose chase to try and find the suspect, or not the suspect, but you know, his son's killer. Yeah. And so you know, he didn't have a ton of cooperation from the police. And so this is happening in the 9th Ward, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's basically whenever you see this area, whenever Katrina happened, that was just flooded and took years and years and years for them to clean up and stuff like that. That's the 9th Ward. It was, you know, a rough part of town. And so, you know, he's trying to find this guy, and they, you know, they talk about these doctors that were writing prescriptions, which, you know, they're referred to as pill mills, and they always, you know, have been. But what it is it's just basically a doctor who is writing an excessive amount of prescriptions for like a narcotic, and they're just filling the community with like these drugs by writing the prescription. So I figured that we would talk about that today. Okay. We would talk about some of that and just kind of the pharmaceutical industry a little bit. You know, it had a big effect on my life. You know, I spent a good chunk of 10 years addicted to pills and heroin, and you know, so watching this documentary and seeing somebody kind of put something like that together for me was, it was just really interesting to watch, you know, because even 5-6 years after that happened, those pills filled our community. I got into them, and a lot of that stuff was still happening. Doctors in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and people would even go to like Houston, Texas to get doctor shop, and just hit 3 or 4 doctor's offices in the same day that would write them prescriptions and get them filled, and then, bring them back and sell them. And so, so what I wanted to look at first is, Google Purdue Pharma, and then also Google,
how do you spell this?
Perdue. Pharma, Pharma. And then also do the Sackler family in a different tab. Sackler.
Boom, boom.
Okay, so let's go to the Purdue Pharma one first. So Purdue Pharma is a pharmaceutical industrial company that creates different drugs and stuff like that and sells them. And so they talk about this a lot in the documentary, and they interview a few people that work for them and the distribution of Oxycontin, and basically the reps, they were basically told that it was a non-addictive treatment for pain, basically.
Okay.
And so they were going around and selling it that way, and doctors and different hospitals and stuff like that were buying it, and they didn't know at the time, but these things were extremely addictive. But the way that Purdue Pharma had directed these different representatives to sell this stuff was kind of ruthless, like sell these things no matter what type deal, and bury as much evidence of it being addictive or of it having any adverse side effects, bury that stuff at all costs. So the Sackler family, if you want to go over to the other tab that I had you look up. So this is the family that started and founded Purdue Pharma. So they are, from what I understand, kind of in a weird spot right now where people it's pretty clear that they caused this opiate epidemic that's hitting our nation right now. So at one point, probably in 2000, I would say either 2008, 9, or 10, they stopped making Oxycontin pills where you were able to crush them down and snort them or shoot them. They made them to where they would gel up, and so you wouldn't be able to get it into a syringe, and if you snorted it, it would just turn into gel in your nose. Of course, people found ways around that stuff, but once that kind of happened,
Jello shots.
It was nasty. Trust me. So, you could still do it, but it was some hardcore MacGyvering, and you would waste a ton of the pill. But yeah, so at one point the gig was kind of up, and so they quit making them to where you could do that stuff. And at that point, it kind of became known that these people were peddling these, drugs like they were.
Huh.
So, scroll down a little bit. So click that one, the Guardian one, underneath the row of whatchamacallits. So we're going to read this. This article is titled "Meet the Sacklers, the Family Feuding Over the Blame for the Opioid Crisis." Stop right there. So it says philanthropic heirs to Oxycontin fortune have a moral duty to help make this right. says the widow of one of Purdue Pharma's founders. U.S. drug companies accused of being the Sackler Drug Rehab Facility, unlike its prestigious Sackler Art Galleries of New York and London, does not exist yet. If lawyers have their way, however, or public opinion pricks a few consciences, it may soon. The Sackler family, a sprawling and now feuding transatlantic dynasty, is famous in cultural and academic circles for decades of generous philanthropy towards some of the world's leading institutions, from Yale University to the Guggenheim Museum in the U.S. and the Serpentine Gallery to the Royal Academy in Britain. But what's less known, though increasingly being exposed, is that much of their wealth comes from one product, Oxycontin, the blockbuster prescription painkiller first launched in 1996. This pill is stronger than morphine and sparked the opioid crisis, is now killing more than 100 people a day in America and has spawned millions of addicts. It's also attracted a wave of lawsuits alleging ongoing deception about the safety of Oxycontin, which the company had previously admitted misbranding in a 2007 criminal case. Two branches of the family control Purdue Pharma, which makes Oxycontin, but unlike their company, none of the Sacklers are personally being sued over it. Lawyers hope that might be about to change. However, its litigation engulfs the company and the effects. Sorry, I need some water. What some call philanthropy, others, such as Stanford University ethics professor Rob Reek, call reputation laundering. The Sacklers have not been named as defendants, but I know several of the firms working on these cases are doing a really deep dive to make that happen, working very hard to break through the corporate veil so they can name the owners. Mike Moore, the former Mississippi Attorney General, told The Guardian. He's one of the key attorneys in the litigation brought by several states against Purdue and other pharmaceutical firms, collectively named Big Pharma. And scroll down. Greed is the main thing. The market for Oxycontin should have been much, much smaller, but they wanted to give a $10 billion. They wanted to have a $10 billion drug, and they didn't tell the truth about their product. So this goes through kind of the Sackler family's, the people. So you have the first son in the Sacklers. The grandparents are Isaac Sackler and Sophie Greenberg, Jewish immigrants who arrived in New York before the First World War. The first son, Arthur, died in 1987 at 73 before Oxycontin was invented, and his heirs have not benefited from its sale. His third wife, Dame Gillian Sackler, is active on the philanthropy circuit. So you have his children who, it says right there, they did not benefit from the sales of this drug. Then you have the second son, Mortimer Sackler, died 2010 at 93, former chief executive of Purdue Pharma. His third wife, Dame Teresa Sackler, is active on the philanthropy circuit. So his seven children, which are, these are board members of Purdue Pharma. Yeah, so it looks like three of his seven children are on the board at Purdue. And then you have the third son, Raymond. Scroll down. He died in 2017 at 97, former chief executive of Purdue Pharma. His wife, Beverly Sackler, was a board member until recently. So first off, these people all live to be the oldest people ever, if you noticed.
7,000 years old.
Yeah. So, we don't really have the time to break down this stuff like hardcore, but we'll keep reading a little bit. And in 2007, Purdue Pharma pleaded guilty to federal felony charges that the company misled regulators, doctors, and patients about Oxycontin risk of addiction and abuse. Sackler family members were not charged. The family owned Purdue, based in Connecticut, and with an arm in the UK called Mundi Pharma, developing other markets for opioids, denies its wrongdoing amid the current litigation, but there's signs that the giant court settlement may be around the corner between Big Pharma and city, county, and state authorities from across the U.S. that are all suing. Mississippi lawyer Mike Moore is confident that there will be a deal to help pay for a catastrophe that the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate is costing the U.S. $7 billion a year. So $78 billion a year. So one of the things that is, really interesting about this whole thing is that, I was talking about earlier how they stopped making them that certain way to where you could, so whenever I was using that stuff, more hardcore drugs like heroin, I had never even seen it or been offered it or anything like that. So once they made the big change, heroin kind of hit the streets, and it was
when they made it change back to, or when they changed it to like gel.
Yeah.
Heroin hit the streets.
Yeah, heroin hit the streets, and the problem with heroin. So this is the big thing, the big kind of controversy, especially coming from that world, was the fact that heroin just swept the streets right after that. It almost felt like it was safer with just the Oxycontin epidemic the way that it was, because if you bought an 80 milligram or a 30 milligram Oxycontin, you knew that you were getting 80 or 30 milligrams. So you could buy a bag of heroin on the street corner one day and it barely gets you high at all, and the next day you buy it from the same guy and
so
you're
everything's
dead.
like homemade.
Yeah. It's all cut and stomped on and has different purity, and there's no way for regular people to test purity and all of that of those drugs. And so, shortly after that, you had the fentanyl situation. So let's Google fentanyl, the history of fentanyl. Fentanyl.
Say it again.
Fentanyl. And do history after that. So lucky for me, I got off that stuff 5 or 6 years ago before fentanyl hit the streets hardcore, and this stuff is what is what's really causing issues right now. So click that DEA one, the second one. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Pharmaceutical fentanyl was developed for pain management treatment over cancer patients, applied in a patch on the skin. Because of its powerful opioid properties, fentanyl is also diverted for abuse. Fentanyl is added to heroin to increase potency or be disguised as highly potent heroin. So this stuff is so much stronger, and it's what's causing a lot of people to die, like today and more
because they're taking too much.
Yep. And well, the problem is that it's even trace amounts of it, can kill you. I've heard a few stories of police that touched something that it had been on, or touched a person that overdosed who was sweating and got high from their sweat. And so I don't know the accuracy of those stories and how that particular drug works, but that's the word on the street with that stuff. So it and the thing about fentanyl is, I want to say, is Google, is fentanyl manufacturing banned in the US? So the reason that I want to look this up is because, over the years, I've done pretty much every drug that there is to do, and I don't know. Yeah. So, okay, I'm not sure, if fentanyl. It is, so today China has made it illegal to manufacture and sell fentanyl. but has not. Click it real quick.
Wait, this one?
Keep going down. That one.
This?
Yeah. Keep scrolling down. All right, stop. So it says today China's made it illegal to manufacture and sell fentanyl, but not address fentanyl analogs, drugs closely related to fentanyl. That's right. So, the manufacturing of it in the U.S. is banned, and it also is in China, but the problem is the analogs aren't. So the stuff that it takes to make it isn't banned, and other drugs that are very similar to it aren't banned. So the actual majority of that stuff that is here in the U.S. is coming from China, which should scare the crap out of everybody right now with the coronavirus situation. But back, I'd say, 2010, something like that, whenever that bath salt stuff was everywhere.
Yeah.
All that stuff was what they're talking about whenever they talk about these analogs. So it might be a drug that's similar to meth and does the same thing, but it has one chemical component that's off from it, so it's not technically meth. It's not ever going to be seen by the market. Somebody had a mass amount of it and they would sell it, as this bath salt stuff. You can go on the internet and order it. And so that's, sort of what we're looking at with this fentanyl situation. And I just found it to be pretty interesting, the history of that stuff. It does go back to some medical uses in the U.S. Years and years ago, but for the most part, it's been banned. But they don't really have any restrictions on companies like Purdue Pharma testing and developing these drugs at all. So, there was another. I saw something a few months back where they had supposedly made something that's 80 to 100 times stronger than fentanyl, and were gonna send it through like FDA stuff to try and get approval. So that's
200 times stronger than morphine.
Yeah. So
and morphine,
or 200 times stronger than Oxycontin, which is way stronger than morphine.
So like 300.
Morphine is not a long lasting high, or you know what I mean. It's a pins and needly feeling that happens for like hardcore for about 30 seconds, and then somewhere between like 6 and maybe 40 minutes afterwards. I mean, you'll be high like all day, but the real like intensity of it goes away rather quickly compared to heroin or Oxycontin or something like that. So you got anything you want to say about any of that stuff, or any whatever?
Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah. So, I mean, what does this stuff look like, you being a teenager? I mean, you're not in public school, but...
No, but I get people who offer me stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Just out. And just say no. I don't know.
Do you see or do you hear about at all how these drugs are affecting kids your age?
No, like I don't know anyone who does anything crazy like that.
Yeah.
Only people I've run into is just like marijuana, which is nothing like this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's safer than alcohol.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know anyone personally who has like died to this stuff either. So I don't really have any experience with it. But yeah.
Well, a lot of people do, and
it said 100 people.
100 people a day.
A day. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some stories that would, blow your mind, about people in the Northeast and bigger cities, and the kind of stuff that drug dealers do, and the stuff also that users do, whenever they find out. Just I've heard people say that they've seen on the news people overdosing and dying. They knew the person, they knew where they got their drugs from, and they would go straight to that place because that's where the good stuff is right now. I've heard people say up there that like on all these sets, like blocks and stuff, where you just go drive down the street, somebody's on the corner, that dealers will go out there real early in the morning, like 4:00 in the morning, and just drop bags on the ground and put a stamp on the bags so you could trace back and find who was selling it. So addicts would be going out there early in the morning and
Getting
grabbing
some
all
free
these
samples.
bags. Yep. And then they would go, they would know where they could get it,
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's like in the food court when they're giving out some free chicken samples.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Little sesame chicken bites. Everybody knows what they taste like already.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows exactly what it's about to taste like, but they still grab it.
Yeah. So yeah, dude. I don't know, man. Maybe at some point we can do a deeper,
Drugs.
longer dive. No, we're not doing drugs.
Just kidding.
We're not doing drugs.
No, I mean, it's a weird world.
It is. I was telling Callie yesterday, I was like, one of the most upsetting things is that it's like it just is your decision whether or not you stay on this stuff, and that's it. That's all it is. And like, if I would have, like, I could kick myself in the butt because like knowing now that like all it took was like more motivation and more willpower, and like I stopped doing it on my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the only time that it's like it stuck.
That it worked instead of having people tell you to go get clean.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Yeah, if you know anybody that's struggling with that stuff, listeners or whoever, like, it just with the proper motivation, anybody can get off of it. You really can. I mean, that's it, So I thought it would be fun to talk about that stuff just because I was in the middle of it,
Yeah, I follow, the Savannah Police Department on Twitter, and they post, like, whenever they do raids and stuff, they post all the crap that they find. There's some crazy stuff that most of it's marijuana, but like there's always lots of weapons and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I see those things too, and just so you know, and so that the listeners know, whenever you see somebody talking about like a 16, we did like a huge bus, 16 people, we got like I saw one time, dude, that was like, yeah, we busted like 8 people. They had like 12 pounds of weed, leave it alone. 12 pounds of weed, like a couple pounds of coke, and like 2 ounces of heroin. And they were talking about how it was like this huge drug bust. And it's like, dude, you didn't even put a dent in any of that stuff. Like 2 ounces of heroin is, I mean, like if one person had 2 ounces of heroin, it's a lot of heroin, but like that's not a lot of heroin at all. It's just not, like, you're not putting a dent in this, like, it's just here, and it's here. And like, I would hate to burst your bubble for the people that think that government officials have the ability to stop this stuff from coming into it started in the US.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it started in the US, and it was sold, lied to about, all out in the open. Government regulated pharmacies sold it first. And so it just, it's an epidemic for a reason. And like, as you know, like Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to keep it from getting here. He just doesn't. I saw somebody that had posted that recently, and it's like
that Donald Trump was going to stop the drugs.
Yeah, like
just him.
Yeah.
I just imagine him. And listen,
the sad thing about it is so the person that posted it was a former addict, and I just wanted to be like, hey, like you grew up exactly where I grew. Like you did it. You're like. Did you forget
that it was everywhere?
Yeah, like
it really is. I mean, it really is everywhere.
I've never gotten caught. I've gotten caught with it a couple times, but like
but not like caught.
Like I have not gotten caught with it much more than I've gotten caught with it. Like it doesn't take it. Somebody with a backpack with 4 pounds of heroin, like that could destroy your city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 ounces, but like is not that much, but like 4 pounds, and you can fit that in a backpack. And somebody like you can throw it in the back of their car, drive the speed limit, make sure their taillights and all their tags are thing, and then it's there. Then it's where you're bringing it. And now there's 4 pounds of heroin in your community.
It's not that difficult to get it places.
The reason that I say that is to say that it is an epidemic, but if you're on it, you can get off of it. You can, and it doesn't have to kill you. It just doesn't. Also, if you're sitting there doing it, like it's one of the most selfish things that you can do on the planet, and like it's going to consume you, and it's all you're going to think about, and it's all you're going to do.
And then
I did it for almost 10 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I didn't care about the stuff that I care about now. I didn't care about politics. I didn't care about my community or the world or what's happening or war or I didn't care about any of that stuff. All I cared about was getting high 100% of the time. And like, it's just a waste of
what a weird concept though.
What?
To like be obsessed with something that's so temporary.
Dude,
isn't that, I mean, it's just weird to me. It's like, I mean, I totally get it. In the sense of like I understand how people would want that, but also when you really think about it, it's like I'm gonna spend all of my time, effort, and resources to get this feeling for this limited amount of time.
I mean, I basically MK Ultra'd myself out of it. Like seriously, like I've convinced myself that like it's disgusting, and I like it, like I don't even consider it part of my like I don't even know if I would know what to do anymore. And so like you with the right attitude and stuff, you can just get off of it though. Like you just can, and it's it just doesn't have to be a big thing. But
I think you have to want being off of it more than wanting to be high. Like because I definitely know like people who are like like I really like hearing people talk about like I should stop, but also I don't want to,
Also, do this if you're using like heroin or something like that. Like stop. No, seriously, stop for a while, because if you're doing heroin, you have not. For sure, I know 100%, you have not spent money on pot, because it's money that you don't get to put towards heroin. Stop it. Like smoke pot, and then
just
like I don't know.
Don't
dude.
Do
anytime that I did that, honestly, anytime that I like couldn't get heroin or something like that, smoke pot, I was just like, oh, like this is just better. Like I'm more comfortable. I'm not like. And like I'm not killing myself with it, but it just, I don't know. You don't have to do heroin, and
just like go pick up some peanut M&Ms or something and snack.
Peanut butter M&Ms, dude. I love peanut butter M&Ms.
So good.
But yeah, so I guess that's it for this one. I just kind of wanted to.
Drugs.
talk about drugs,
drugs and Hunt Showdown.
And I'm not trying to be harsh whenever I'm saying like there's nothing we can do about it. Like as long as all of this stuff remains illegal, and I'm not saying that legalizing it is the solution, but I think that decriminalizing it to an extent is like, I don't like that, especially for our prisons to be filled with addicts.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Criminals. Dude, it is so easy to break the law. It's not hard.
But as long as
I know that because we've had so many interactions with the cops where like people have like robbed us or like hit and runs and stuff, and it's like their response is, "We're just too busy." It's like, well, we have video.
Yeah.
We
did all the work for you.
Like you have to, like we know where they live.
Yeah.
Here's their address and their name. You just have to go to the house, and they're like, "Oh, we can't get to it today or ever." And it's like that. At that point, I mean, I don't know why you're not breaking the law. Like, it's easier than working a job,
Yeah.
But I don't recommend it. I'm not endorsing it.
Yeah.
But
just don't do it. But as long as it stays the same way like it is right now, like there's gonna continue to be crime surrounding it.
Progress.
There's gonna, but it is what it is. So
it is what it is.
Yeah. So thank y'all for watching. This was episode 25, actually. Yeah. So we have passed technically the 6-month mark of being in production, and we're doing it, dude. We're having a lot of fun, and you're about to go make some coffee or somebody tell you how good you are at making coffee, and then make coffee.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I mean, I can't make espresso drinks because you're not allowed to touch the espresso machine until you've been trained by Counterculture.
Yeah.
And they're based out of like North or South Carolina, so they only come down every so often. And I'm always either sick or out of town when they're here, so I haven't been trained yet.
How do you get trained to be Counterculture and then train other people?
I don't know.
You know
maybe me and Ethan will just go up to Counterculture's place and get trained. They do like conferences, barista, like you show up and it's like Comic-Con, but for baristas out there making a little bit of that Baby Yoda, latte art.
Yeah. Well, dude, do
I need to sing us out or? Oh, my stomach's speaking to me. If you want.
Go ahead, sing.
Oh, we should do social media first.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at TBAT Quinn. And Skinny Rick.
I need you to start humming.
Camera shot.
And mine is TBAT, at TBAT, TBAT, SKINERICK. Rise up, dead man, let the music ring. Or no, gunshots, not music. Rise up, dead man, let the gunshots ring. Shadows calling, let the gunshots ring. Fought for devil, let the gunshots ring. Yeah, that's it. That's all we're doing.
All right.
Okay, love you. Bye.
See y'all next time.